How's it going? This is Juju with the Existential Bro. We have a special guest of honor. But first, I like to say welcome back, Ricky.
Thank you, brother.
How's it going?
Yeah,
Good
man.
to see
I
you.
feel like
You
it's
are
been-
part of the Existential
yeah,
Bro. So people
sorta.
are probably wondering,
Yeah.
what's happening with the Existential Bro? Juju's taking it to the extreme
Yeah.
and just kind of doing his own thing. What's
So-
happening right now?
So we had for the listeners, me, you, and Doc had a conversation, and I got a little one at home, a lot of stuff happening, very
it's the baby
busy.
excuse. The baby excuse.
I
Which we're
mean,
going to talk about
babies
today.
are great excuses for lots of different things, first of all. But and then Doc obviously is in his rotations and he's busy, so it made sense to basically say, hey, Juju, you take over the pod. You do
You're
it.
way
You
more
have way
better
more
looking
time.
than us.
Yeah,
You're
I mean, I don't know if I'd say that, but
you
like,
definitely
listen.
have a lot more. You have a charm that we just can't match.
Yeah.
So you might as well just
take it.
Take it. Yeah.
But we did say if this takes off, just
you're giving us.
you're gonna give us something.
Yeah. So which it will. So I'm excited to have us here today. I actually have a special guest star, my boss, guest star Grace Horoupian. Welcome to the Existential Bro.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. What an honor to be here.
Yeah,
Thank you, guys.
it's very exciting. So a little bit of backstory. So we actually interviewed together, and you made me aware, but I always knew I interviewed with you. You're like, oh, by the way, I went to this email. I found that I interviewed with you. I was like, oh, I know. And I was sitting there nervous, and I'm sitting there. I'm like, oh my god, like, trying to be like perfectly, buttoned up.
Yeah.
Put my hands out. I'm ready to go, and Grace shows up, and I was like, hey. She's like, hey, what's up? And I was like, I'm waiting to talk to the lawyer. She's like, I'm the man part. Yeah. What's up? I was like, why are you so cool? Like, what's going on? What is happening right now? Like, I totally just calmed my nerves, got me to just relax. And, we're here today, a year later, over a year now, and we get to work together.
That's
and she's
crazy
been an amazing mentor to me through this all. And I'm just so happy to have her here. Grace, welcome.
Well, thank you.
Welcome.
So,
well, just so you know, Julian, I don't remember the specifics of the interview. That is true, but as you know, I don't know what I did 3 hours ago. But I did come across my email, identifying those people that we wanted to come back, and I had an asterisk next to you said must come back, must return, must be interviewed.
Yeah.
So you made a very good impression, obviously.
Thank you. No,
I'm glad you came and joined us.
No, thank you so much. I've been very blessed to be at Fisher Phillips with Grace as my mentor, and now that we're here today, it's like I want to understand how you live the way you live, because I watch you every day and I'm like, wait, you have kids? Like, are you sure you have kids? Like, does anyone else know you have kids? Does your husband know you have kids? Because it's just, it's something that I marvel at, that you are so like passionate about your practice, your law practice, but you're so like a passionate person. You take care of your own, you take care of your office, your family, and it's something that I admire and hope one day I can instill in my family. So I had to ask, how did you get to where you are today as a mother of two, an amazing devoted wife? Mark, you're a very lucky man. I mean, by the way, Mark is a very handsome man as well. I see him at Equinox. I'm like, Mark, well done, buddy. Well done. Wherever you found her, get me one too. Okay. But like, no, it's true. It's seeing you excel at the firm and seeing how much you actually still care about everyone else. It's not just about your practice, about your clients. It's about everyone as a whole. And I've felt that just being able to shadow you and being a mentee to you. So how do you do it all? How do you have time for everything? You're a parent, you're a partner, you're a wife. Like, is there a secret recipe here that we could dive into today, or is it just?
I'd also like the secret recipe.
Yeah, that's why I brought Ricky with me, because he also is a
I'm just
parent.
stumbling through this life.
The funny thing is, it's very nice of you to say that, but of course we look at our own lives, and that's not necessarily what we see in the mirror. And in fact, for whatever reason, all these years I've been at our firm, whenever we have retreats or attorney meetings, somebody inevitably asks me, hey, can you speak on this issue?
Sure.
And I usually respond back, why are you guys asking me? Because I'm usually the daily shit show.
Right.
What do you mean? I have no idea what you guys are seeing, but all I know, it's just very crazy, and from day to day, I don't know, I'm muddling through.
Yeah.
So, I really felt like that for a long time, and I would resist talking on this issue because I really didn't feel like I had anything of value to add, because in the moment, you just feels like a big struggle, because you never feel like you are this perfect parent, a perfect partner, a perfect friend, a perfect anything.
Right.
And, look, let's face it, with what we've chosen to do in our various careers. We're type A's, we're perfectionists probably. We probably have some high level of anxiety, super high expectations. So when we put those parameters on ourselves and grade ourselves, we never come up with high grades. But as I've gotten older, and I have now accepted that, there's value to experience in getting older, you step back and you view yourself a little bit differently, and you say, well, you know what? Maybe it's not breaking it down to the minutia, down to the day or down to the week, but overall, how, am I managing all these things? And, I'm now at a point and says, I think I'm doing okay.
Sure.
Most of the time.
I mean, you're doing more than okay.
Yeah.
She's very humble, but just so you know, this woman's at Equinox before I am. So she's there at 5 a.m. I was like, I remember she told me, she's like, hey, by the way, I go to Equinox too. Do you go? I was like, yeah, I've never seen you. She's like, well, yeah, I go at 5. I was like, you go at 5 a.m. Okay, no, I mean, yeah, I go to Equinox, just not at 5 a.m. We've been doing the best butts ever class, so I've been very focused on getting, getting in there. No, just getting there at 5:30.
Okay, yeah.
No, because it starts early.
Okay.
Yeah, or a good butt too.
Well, and best butts ever,
ladies, as you know.
But
I think it's something that I want to emulate in my practice because, I mean, I'll be honest, I think as an associate, especially as a first year, you're learning so much and it feels like you're just so overwhelmed all the time because not necessarily the work itself, but how much you don't actually know about the sphere of the legal field. You're like, you're learning things, you're like, oh, I would never have known that until it happened.
Right.
And then you start learning more and more and you're thinking, will I ever know any of this stuff? Like, will I know everything in the sphere of the legal world to be a successful
I'd imagine
partner?
the answer, to be a successful partner, sure. But I imagine the answer is like, no, right? I imagine
exactly
you're
right.
learning new stuff every single day. And
Every day,
didn't realize.
I learn something new.
Yeah.
And look, I think it's just, so to go back to your original question, so if I had to give, I'm not even sure if it's advice or if it's, a how-to.
Right.
But I think it's just a mindset, right? And the mindset is, number one, I mean, there's really two components to it.
Sure.
The first component is that you have to be very forgiving of yourself. Because when you're this type A overachiever, probably like we all are, the inclination is to break it down into the minutia and just get stuck there and beat yourself up.
Right.
So it's always about stepping back and, saying, well, okay, even if every component or every minute of this day is not exactly to my standard, how did I do overall? And, and be forgiving of yourself.
Sure.
And because if you don't do that, it's just too hard to get stuck on the imperfections of the day.
Right.
I think that that's the key thing.
Right.
And
Because inevitably there's going to be imperfections throughout the whole day. So if you just get bogged down, you're never moving forward.
Absolutely. You can't get back to somebody fast enough, or you maybe, you yelled at your kids on the way out, they irritated you, whatever the case may be. And the second part of it, I mean, you have to start with this big picture mentality, be a little bit more forgiving of yourself. And then the second part of it is you really have to be focused on, all right, there is no way I'm going to get everything done. It's just not possible.
Right.
What are the non-negotiables?
Sure.
It's about the non-negotiables. Okay. So at work, missing deadlines, non-negotiable.
Right. Right.
Okay. Making sure my kids are fed and off to school, non-negotiable.
Yep.
That's good.
Okay.
That is a good
That's a good one. I didn't think about that one. Yeah.
That's a non-negotiable.
Sure.
Okay, those are priorities. That has to get done. If I do those 3 things well in that day, A+.
Yes. Yeah.
And then there's the secondary things, or what are some of the things that you need to do, maybe you don't have time to, and then figuring out what can be outsourced.
Right.
Outsourcing is a really important part of the career and parent management. It really is. So for a long time, I was able to outsource, child care, the pickups, the driving, or whatever. You hire somebody,
right?
And it took a lot of stress out.
Sure.
And there's weird things that I don't like to outsource, like my laundry. I don't want everyone to do my laundry. Yeah. I'm very particular.
Equinox does them for you for free, by the way.
I know. I can hire people to do it. But, I don't want to do certain things at home, but certain things that I like to do or I want to do myself, or the cooking, or, we've been talking about cooking.
Yeah.
Maybe if you're not a good cook or you just don't like it and it's too time consuming or whatever, that's something you can outsource, or maybe you choose not to.
Sure.
So it's about what are the non-negotiables, what can be outsourced, what don't you want to be outsourced, and then kind of working within those parameters at the same time, really trying hard to be very forgiving of anything that just doesn't go perfectly, because it won't. It won't. It's just about, I guess sort of like weight loss or whatever. You know how they say it goes kind of up and down. There's just
in life.
Overall trajectory.
Yeah, 2 steps up, 1 step back, kind of a thing. Yeah.
So I think, to me, that's where the key is.
Sure.
Now you have this knowledge after having a 14 and 16-year-old teenage daughters 16 years later. I mean, you're probably going through this now. When they were just babies, was this something that you even thought would be possible to like come out at the end of it and say, okay, cool, like I know my non-negotiables, I know what I need to do as a parent, I know how to manage my practice? Or were you just kind of like everything's up in the air the whole time? You're like, I don't know what's happening.
I think the latter. I think these revelations, you and I talk about this at the office, and it's just not. Look, I always tell you, I think that there's value in experience. I'm one of these people. I don't mind getting older. Like, birthdays don't bother me.
Well, when you look like this, I mean, it's not too bad. You're like, I don't really mind it anyway.
Like, this is really great.
It's just so hard getting
thoroughly
older.
Enjoying.
Yeah, when I look, God, getting old sucks.
I mean, it really is a blessing, because I think it was a really, for me, when I turned 50, I thought, probably unlikely I'm going to live here another 50 years. So,
keep going to the gym at 5 a.m. every day. Maybe another
90.
70.
I mean, you know what? I'm going for the 90s. 100, I don't know. I think it gets a little bit dangerous, but
that's fair.
Certainly in the 90s. That's the goal. As long as I have quality of life, of course.
Correct.
But, as you get older, I think that there is, you and I talk about it, there's a certain level of maturity. So your view changes. And not to say that your viewpoints when you're younger,
are wrong.
They're not bad. They're not wrong. Or there's nothing wrong with it. It's just a natural process of life and in all these things, and certain things that are important to you when you're 29, or what was important to me is not that important to me now.
Sure.
Or things that I value now is not really your thing.
Yeah, things
to
shift.
You guys. Absolutely. So I think it's just being aware of how life evolves.
Right.
And I think you just have to accept that if you like something 5 years ago, you don't have to like it now.
Right.
If something worked 5 years ago, maybe it doesn't work now.
Right.
It's just flexible. You have to be flexible.
I hear you completely. It's funny because I'm 33, but when I turned 30, I was 29 and I was turning 30. Everyone was like, "Oh no, like how do you feel?" And I'm like, "Great, I'm excited for this. I'm excited for 35. I'm excited for 40. Like every year, same. It's exciting. It's like new things that I'm learning, new things that I'm doing. Like I don't know, they're fun. It's fun as you get older.
And I think I don't know if all women, but certainly for me,
right.
I think it has been unbelievably liberating. I mean, I wish I had the confidence, in my 20s or 30s that I do in my 50s.
Sure.
Like, I am very comfortable in my skin.
Right.
And I mean, it's not really tied to, I look a certain way or I get certain attention.
Just being confident.
You know what? I know who I am.
Right.
I know my strengths. I know my weaknesses.
Right.
I know my shortcomings.
Right. And it's like you said earlier, it's giving yourself that grace to mess up or whatever. So it's that is the confidence, right? Is that like, although I messed up, or I didn't do this today, or I didn't do this last week, it's not a call. It's not an intrinsic value that I'm a bad person, and it doesn't define you. It
doesn't define you.
Right.
It no longer becomes an insecurity, because when you have those insecurities, especially when you're younger, it really affects you and how you're going to develop.
Well, because think of it when you're young, right, and you're in your early 20s, you're really trying to figure out who you are as a person. Right. So when those mistakes happen, you're like, is it because that's who I am as a person?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And look, making mistakes I try to tell my kids this, don't be afraid of mistakes.
Right.
Other than 2 mistakes.
Okay. What are the 2?
Addiction.
Sure.
Fair.
Okay.
Yep.
Alcohol, drugs, whatever.
Yep.
That is a mistake that stays with you forever.
Correct.
Because once you become an addict, I think that's something, not to say people can't manage it, but it is
but you're
something
always
going to have to deal with it. So one, don't go down that path.
Right.
And the second thing is, don't have children unless you're really ready.
Fair.
Because that is a lifetime commitment.
Those
two are non-reversible
Right.
errors.
But so that goes with also the partner you choose, because the partner you choose and who you have children with is a irreversible.
Well, technically that is
right?
It's sort of reversible. I mean, it's
very,
irreversible. Like, yes, you're
divorce is
attached to
not
that person, but
Yeah.
like you can have
You can co-parent.
You can
co-parent.
yeah, you
You
can
can.
co-parent
You're right.
or like
You're right.
separate your lives. Like I'm not,
Yeah.
you know.
You're just saying once you have kids at a certain age, you're not ready for it.
That child is forever. Like you are
Yeah.
forever responsible.
That's true.
For that.
That's true.
With
Yes.
or without someone.
Correct.
It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a child, that responsibility, that commitment, that whatever you need to do with that child, that stays with you
Yeah,
until
you're in
you
it.
die.
Yep, you are in
You know,
it.
it doesn't matter. Your kids are 1, 10, 50.
Yep.
It doesn't matter. You're always going to be a parent.
Yeah.
So I think the key is make sure that you become a parent when you're good and ready.
Right.
So for me, I was not ready.
But you waited though, right? My
waited.
understanding is that you took
I
some
waited.
time and you said, okay,
yeah,
you really
long time.
developed your career.
So
Yeah,
my
smart.
husband and I were married for 10 years.
Wow. Okay.
Before
cool.
we had our first.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was 30, almost 37.
Okay.
Yeah, just shy of 37 when I had my first.
Sure.
And it was just a couple months shy of 40 when I had my second daughter. So, and you know, it's fine. And you know, sometimes I think I'm too old for this crap. I worked so long.
Right.
This is exhausting. Like, this is for young people.
Yeah.
On the other hand, look, you know, I was in a much better financial position to have my kids. So, for example, outsourcing and helping me balance. You know, when I had a kid at 40, I was in a better place.
And you would have been at 25.
That's
yeah,
right.
Of
That's
course.
right. I could afford more. I didn't have as many of the financial pressures that maybe younger people do. And I was a little bit more mature. So, you know, you just have to do what feels right for you.
Right.
Do you think it was more of a finite decision that you and your husband sat down one day and said, hey, we're 37 years old.
Should we do this now?
What's going on here? Like, what's the plan?
Yeah, did you feel
or was
pressure
it
at
more
that point?
so
Like, we should probably
do you think
get going?
subconsciously you were thinking about it more? So you were obviously being a little bit more loose with how you were planning and just like, okay, if it happens, it happens. Or was it something that you really had to sit down with your husband and be like, hey, like we're both like really busy, but we should probably think about this whole parent thing?
Good question, yeah.
Yeah, well, kind of none of the above.
You're like, anything you just thought happened is very
None of that
far
happened,
off.
yeah.
No, listen, you know, I'll tell you, I had always, you know, imagined myself as somebody who would never have children.
Right.
I just didn't, you know, I didn't
Career,
babysit.
that was the- yeah.
I did not babysit kids. Although everyone always said, like, you know, kids really like you, which is true. I mean, I still get, you know, kids tend to gravitate towards me. I'm not really sure why. I'm probably nice to them. But it wasn't anything that I felt like, I just didn't see that in my view of my own world.
Sure.
So when that changed for me was, you know, my mom passed away in 2005. So about that time I was 36 years old, so about a year before my daughter was born. And, you know, my mom was also a very career-oriented person. I mean, I won't say she was a bad mom, but like being the traditional mom wasn't her thing.
Oh, wow,
I just
okay.
felt like she was way ahead of her times.
Wow,
from
that's
where she
interesting.
came from.
Yeah.
Where she came from, you know, her generation, she was a little bit of ahead of her times. It just really wasn't her thing. I don't think, and it doesn't have anything to do with not loving her kids. It's just, you know, my mom wasn't ever going to sit down with you and play, you know, dolls.
Right.
You know, it's just, like, there's nothing she would rather not do.
It's like, I'm billing my hours right now. I can't really. I just lost $1,000.
So when she got sick, and you know, she passed away. You know, within the time she was diagnosed with her illness, and she passed away, it was like maybe about a year and a half. And in that process, you know, I saw my mom kind of prioritize her what was important to her, and it was 100% the three of us, me and my two siblings. And then it was just, you know, makes you think, like, what is at the end of the day? You know, I love shopping, but, you know, it's not going to come with you.
Yeah, of course.
You know, I mean, those are all short-term pleasures.
100%.
But, you know, what was that? Like, what was her legacy? And her legacy was through her children. And I think it was like the first time that I thought, you know, my window may be closing biologically as a woman. And I just kind of announced, yep, this is what we're going to do.
Mark just had to go with it.
Mark's like,
He's like, you sure? Like, we've been doing pretty well so far, just us two. Traveling, doing your thing.
Yeah, listen, he was absolutely not on board with it. And he was just, I don't think he saw himself as a parent because he's not that's just not his thing, although he's an amazing dad. But so it was just one of those, well, how about we'll negotiate one and only one?
Oh, wow.
You know,
okay.
So then we ended up, fortunately, having
someone's not good at negotiation is what I feel like.
You know.
someone lost the negotiation.
Somebody lost the negotiation. And then it was like, don't worry, one and only one. And then I had one like, well, she can't be an only child. Are you crazy?
Right.
Who said that? I didn't say that. Did I say that? Well, anyway, I don't think that's true anymore.
Yeah,
that's it.
that's
and
crazy.
Then came Ani. So
That's cool.
So look, I mean, and it was the right thing. And of course, you know, even with Mark, I just don't think he necessarily saw himself in that light. But when the kids come, I mean, it transforms you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's an amazing dad. And I think my girls are very, very, very fortunate to have him as a dad.
That's awesome.
So dating advice now for myself,
okay.
Because you just said that, and I've been thinking, like, I always thought, I remember when I would date, I'd always I'd fall in love and I'd be like, okay, this is the person I'm going to marry, but can I have kids with this person? She didn't have like motherly features, or maybe I thought I could give something to her or to the family that she necessarily couldn't bring because maybe of her age or just a disconnect in the relationship and what I expected for my family. But you just said that that's something that kind of came with parenting. Like, it didn't necessarily just like, it's not something in you. Like, you can be a parent and all of a sudden, like, were you motherly prior to having kids?
Absolutely not.
Oh, so you just became, so that actually could happen through having kids?
It absolutely changes you.
Really?
Yes. I think so.
Because I had
not
always,
for everybody.
Yeah, sure.
Not for everybody. But it certainly was my experience.
Yeah.
And I mean, I still say, you know, having my kids, and I look at my kids and they're, you know, growing up into these, you know, pretty amazing young women. And I'm like, well, this is for sure the single best accomplishment of my life, you know, because I've helped raise
people,
these girls and look, I'm you know, I drive them crazy.
Sure.
You're listening there. Yes, we can confirm that.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm constantly do this, do that, like talking, you know, in hopes of if they retain half the stuff, then you know, I think I'm in good shape. I've done my job.
Yeah, 100%.
I've done my job.
So it definitely came with having kids, like the motherly feel. Because I'll give you an example, and I think something I was able to break by even meeting you and being able to just see how great of a mom and how great of a partner you've been to Mark, and hearing your stories and your experiences. It's kind of changed. Like, I was raised in a very traditional Middle Eastern household. And seeing that as a child, like where the man would leave to go to work and the mom would take care of the kids and cook and do all of these things, and then thinking that's what a family dynamic is supposed to be, where my dad was traveling for 10 years of my early youth outside of the state, and he wasn't home to be a father in that sense, but he was financially providing for us, and he'd call us to make sure we're okay and we're doing good in school and give him the report card grades. But I never had a mother who was going out. She worked, but that wasn't a career for her. It was her only priority was her kids and making sure they're fed and making sure they're taken to school, making sure their bed was made at times, you know? And I thought that that's what women were supposed to be. So going into a career where there's some amazing women professionals, especially the lawyers that I work with at our office, especially coming from someone sitting in front of someone right now, I'm like, wait, I had such a skewed perception of what a family dynamic was.
Or what, like a successful parent.
Like I thought successful parenting was man goes to work, woman takes care of the kids, she cooks, and that's just what parenting was. And I have so much respect for you and for women through watching you in your career and as a parent that it's changed my view. And I'm realizing now that maybe my view was outdated.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. And I think that's part of the struggles that people have with parenting, especially women, because I, too, was raised in a very traditional home. My mom worked, but my grandma lived with us, and she, you know, raised us and took care of all those things. So it's an interesting thing for women. So for men, it's, you know, if you're a provider, check, I'm a great parent because I'm a provider, because the expectation is that that's your primary role. Well, that's not a realistic thing anymore because for the most part, especially for young people coming up the ranks, it doesn't matter if you're professional or doing something else in your lives. I mean, the economic realities are, you know, you kind of have to build your wealth and build your life probably as a partnership. Yeah. So that in of itself has changed over time, and I think people are embracing that that's just a new reality.
Yeah. Well, life's also becoming way more expensive, right? Like you can, LA, Orange County, you can't just like single parenting or just having one household income is not easy.
It's not easy, or not with the lifestyles that certainly probably you or my kids are now becoming accustomed to. They're going to want to do that.
Yeah, of course.
So they're going to adopt that. But yeah, I think those traditional roles, not only in terms of working and not working, but also, you know, what are the expectations as a mom? And look, it's really interesting because I was thinking about that on the drive over because I thought, what are these guys going to ask me? I have no idea what I'm going to say. But one of the
calling
things
your kids, you're like, tell me a little bit about me. Quick. Like, what do you know about me?
Neurotic.
You're like, you can't.
Yeah, all the negative stuff. But so it's not just like the working or the not working, but it's just the expectations we put on ourselves as our moms. Like, for example, you're going to see this very soon.
Sure.
I think you have a daughter, right?
Yes, I have a daughter. Yeah.
So she's going to go to school and she's going to be like, "Hey, Mom, can you be the class helper?"
Right.
And you're thinking, no, that sounds terrible.
That does sound terrible.
I do absolutely not. I mean, I did that one time and thinking I'm going to spend time with my kid. And
it was actual work.
Well, I had
like
to
cutting.
Help
You're like cutting.
Yeah, cutting. I had to help some other kid make a basket.
Gluing things together.
And I'm like, you know what? This is not working for me. That's not working for me. So, so then there's these expectations if you're not doing that maybe you're not fulfilling what your expectation of a parent is, or maybe if you're not, I don't know, a variety of these things.
Sure.
Really, it comes down to this time of what you should be doing or not doing. So that's a real challenge. But then again, you have to step back. And I started having a conversation with my daughters, for example, early on, saying, all right, look, yes, I am not going to be the class helper.
Right. Yeah.
However, I am a valuable contributor to that class in the form of guess who bought the cupcakes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, so you have to kind of identify
what role
times
you play.
Have changed, and you can be a contributor to your household in maybe different ways, and you outsource or whatever, and your kids understand that, and I think you have to look at the whole parenting situation and say, maybe I don't want to do this. I mean, I used to see some of the kids, especially at the elementary school level, whose moms lived there, and I thought, oh,
how do you do this?
How do you do this? This is horrible. Horrible. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't have to do that. Yeah. So I think.
But that's not what defines a good parent.
It doesn't define a good parent. Yeah. Absolutely does not define a good parent. And you can see that because, for example, in the same parents who live at the school, you're thinking, do you have any friends that are over 10? Because it doesn't look like it. What's going on?
It's tough.
No, it's a good point. But it's funny that she brings up that whole. I feel like your gender role. There's no gender role in your parenting. I would say,
you're very 50-50. For me and my wife is like, it's probably leans more traditional. Like I'm the breadwinner, but like, home but I also, I do a lot. I do a lot of. I don't think I have like a traditional like father role, like in terms of like, paying our mortgage and all that stuff. Like, yes, I kind of bear the brunt of most of that, but also like I really want to spend time with my daughter, right? Like,
but you were the one that told me, and correct me if I'm wrong, is, man, working. It's not that I can't work. I like working. I like being successful, but working sucks because it takes away time from my 100%.
Kid.
I don't think my dad ever once told us like, work sucks because I can't spend time.
So I don't know if I would have felt that before I had my daughter, but like when we were saying earlier, it kind of changes you. I didn't realize how much I want to hang out with this girl. Like, she's my buddy. Like,
you literally talk about her 24/7.
I could talk about her. I could not stop talking.
Yeah, like, dude, Rick, I'm going to this Maxim Models party. You're like, dude, look at this one funny thing that Frankie did. I'm like,
I'm that parent, but I can't help. Like, she's like, it's like me. Like, I'm like, I love this little girl. Like, so
you really love yourself.
100%. I was worried before we had a kid. I was worried because I'm a pretty selfish person.
That's fair.
And it was like, how does that look? But then you have a kid and you're like, oh, it's me. Like, this is me.
That was the one thing I knew when I was answering the previous question. I thought there was one more thing. I just, lost my train of thought for a second. But you just nailed on this whole thing on the parenting that I think has evolved. There is, I think the traditional roles, especially for women, was that if you were focused on anything but by your children, you were automatically labeled as selfish.
Right.
Okay. So now I think we have kind of evolved from that as a parent, where we said, well, look, I am, whatever the case may be, I'm pushing my kids to be, making sure they do their homework.
Yep.
We want them to get into good colleges.
Yeah.
We want them to be successful. We want them to do all those things. Why? Especially daughters.
Right.
Why? Because you want them to be independent.
Yeah, of course.
You want them to be
You don't want them to
successful
rely
in the
on somebody.
workplace.
Yeah.
You want them to do all those things. And if they achieve all those things and go out and work, if they have kids, you don't expect them to give that up.
Right.
Because now, if I want to work and I want to be successful and I want to make money because I want to give my kids a lot of opportunities, whatever it is, private schools and buying fun little things or trips or whatever, that's not selfish.
Right.
That's
no,
not
exactly.
selfish.
Right.
So I think we now, as modern parents, I think the reason I think we've kind of come away from those traditional mother-father roles, certainly for mothers, is because you can be a whole person, and you should be a whole person, because otherwise what kind of a role model are you for your daughters, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I want to be my husband's equal partner,
Right.
in different ways. I mean, we still have a very traditional household. I mean, we're both Armenian, and those things don't go away.
Yeah.
But I am an equal voice in the house.
Right.
I want my kids to see me as somebody who's independent, who's strong, who has an opinion. Not that my way or the highway.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe
a little bit.
Someone won the negotiation.
Actually, you know what, girls, if you're listening to this, it is her way or the highway.
But,
she can't go to dad if you say no, and dad will be like, all right, fine. Okay.
Well, right. I mean, I have veto power.
Yeah.
Okay,
so,
that's
so
fair.
we try not to exercise veto powers regularly.
Right.
Okay, fair enough.
But I think that's the thing, right? You can come away from those traditions because if you step back and say, all right, if I had a daughter or a son, I don't have sons, so I feel like I can't speak to it as much, but as a daughter, what do I want for them? I want my kids to be fully educated. I want them to be successful. I want them to be happy, and I want them to be able to always have the ability to make their own choices, because I don't want them to ever get stuck in a situation because they're financially dependent on someone, or there's societal pressure, like you have to be here because it's frowned upon to do something else. Absolutely not. Because I think when you have choices, you're empowered. And if you're empowered, I think you have the better ability to control your own fate.
Right.
So I think, if we step back and say, well, why am I putting different parameters on myself than I do on my own children, then you realize these things that are holding us back just aren't something you really believe in the first place.
Right.
So.
And it's interesting because hearing you say that you have like a traditional household in the sense that you're in both Armenian, you're cultured, and you have like certain foods that you probably make, and you have certain holidays, and you spend time with family and all of that. But I also hear outside of this episode that Mark cooks, and Mark helps out with the family, and Mark is a equal partner with you. That I think sometimes we forget that as people, we're humans first. It's not like men, woman, gender roles. It's just we're just human beings trying to make these other human beings successful. And I feel like you embody that really
funny,
well.
Because it's like, we're talking about like old traditional roles versus kind of like what it looks like today. And on the mother's side, it's what you're saying. It's like, it's traditionally like if you're not spending all your time and you're doing these things to like for your work or whatever, you're seen as selfish. And then simultaneously on the other side, if you're the guy and you're like not out there grinding and hustling and making all the money that you can, and you're spending too much time, it's like, oh,
you're
that's
lazy.
You're
lazy.
Right,
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like I think we're we're meeting in the middle.
That's
like
right.
you have men and women, and you're kind of meeting. It's like we can both do this stuff equally, right?
Yeah.
So
look, I mean, Julian, you were saying, your dad would have never said, I wish I could spend more time with my kids. I bet you he felt that way.
Sure.
It just wouldn't have been acceptable for him to say that.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
the norms, the cultural norms, the times or whatever probably told him if he said that, he would be, not meeting his obligations to his family.
Well, we talked about this in the office, is like there was this pride with Middle Easterns, but also even in just our professional life, where I think lawyers, people that are in the office working these crazy hours, there's this pride that comes with, I'm busy.
That's right.
I'm important. Yeah. I can't spend time with my kids because I have all of these other obligations.
Right.
So for my dad, it was, hey, I need to go to Kansas or Wisconsin or Wichita and do this contract for a year, and you might not see me because I'm important and I have to pay for your bills, and I want to take care of you guys. And look, my dad did an amazing job. He took both me and my brother to UCLA and paid for our entire education while paying for 2 apartments in Westwood. Like, he did very well as far as taking care of the family, but it was the fact that that's what I saw. So all I heard was, be busy, be important, be someone who is needed at all times. So something I'm struggling with is maybe maybe life is not just about being busy and making sure that you're working super hard, because I think working hard is important and instills value in your kids and it shows them a role model. I always think about my dad coming home late after he worked a 12, 14-hour day and then studying for his master's degree after he had a quick 20-minute dinner with us. And that instilled hard work. My dad would drive to Mojave Desert. Now I drive from LA to OC and I don't even think about it because I'm like, my dad drove twice as long as I did. So I think that instills hard work, but I also think it takes away from, we are all on this earth for such a short amount of time. If we have that mentality of, we need to be busy, we need to be important so our kids can have everything they want, but the kids sometimes just want to be with their family. Those are the relationships. Your mother probably came back and said, hey, look, I didn't realize how important these things were until life started to end.
Well, look, I mean, it's a balance, and your focus is different at different stages in your life. I really think, like, when your kids are babies, like your daughter is, it is a lot more time consuming.
Right.
Because you have to change them, you have to feed them, you have to put them to sleep.
Right. They rely on you just entirely.
24/7. So a number of hours of commitment. So yes, at that point in your life, there's only so many hours in a day. So yeah, you have to make those adjustments. As they get older, all of a sudden, something very small, like they're brushing their own teeth and putting on their own pajamas. You're like, wow.
That saved me an extra 30 minutes.
Oh, man, that sounds amazing.
Taking their own bath. And, you don't have to play silly games or whatever. And,
at what age do they? Is it 2?
Well, Frankie's now cooking in that little toy set. So Frankie got like a little toy set.
Toy kitchen.
So these things evolve. Or as Julian knows, I was counting maybe the seconds until I'm like, my daughter's going to drive.
Yeah, it's all I heard for a little. I just met her. She's like, by the way, my daughter almost got a license. I'm like, I'm Julian. Nice to meet you.
My mom told me that was one of the most liberating things. She's like, when you got your license, I was just like, oh, you can drive your brother around. You can just go.
Yes. So, so time commitments change over time. But I also, and that's true. A lot of what you're saying is true when you're a parent. But up until you're a parent, I think it's pedal to the metal.
Right.
All right?
Right.
That's my advice.
Yeah. I like that.
Just
do it.
Go.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Just go. You're young. You have the time. You don't have the strings to anything else. Go as far as you possibly can. So then you have a lot more flexibility when you have it.
That's really good. Okay. That's a really good advice. Why not?
Why not?
Yeah, why not?
Why not?
Yep.
Yeah.
Why not? Is it going to kill you if you're in office till 8 instead of 6?
Well, as long as you're there, it's been pretty nice. I'm like, hey, what's up? How's it going?
Well, Tuesdays
Good to see you, teammate. Like, yeah. I'm like, what's up, team?
Yes, I see.
You got any other cases?
Yeah.
No, it's fun. No, I agree, and I think especially the transition for me coming out of law school and starting to see the professional life, I think it made me appreciate my dad a lot more, because I didn't realize how hard it really is. I'm just supporting myself and I have a good job, but there's a lot of things that I think about. I even think about sometimes, and maybe it's too preemptive, but my dad, I think about what's going to happen if one day he can't take care of himself. I need to financially provide for him. And my brother and I talk about it. We talk about these things. We need to be okay in 10 years. We need to, like you said, pedal to the metal for the next 10 years. So in case, God forbid, something happens to my family, we are able to help,
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. I look at that even now. Like I said, earlier on in, when my kids were younger, it was really, tough.
Yeah.
It's getting easier time-wise.
Right.
But heavier on the worry side.
Right.
Well, you're also getting older too, so it's like it's getting easier, but you're also like it's. I feel like when you have all that time, or when you don't have all that time and you're young with them, you don't get to experience like being young with them. But as you're getting older, you start to gain more time back. But they're starting to leave the house.
Well, yeah, and they're becoming independent, so they're out there in the world, right?
Like
they're out there in the world.
You gain more time, but you also gain a lot more worry.
Yeah.
Because they're out in the world and you're concerned. Are they safe? Are they with the right people?
Right.
And all of that. And also, all of a sudden, you're thinking, oh my goodness, my time to be able to prepare them for the future.
It's shortening.
Wow, it's going by awfully fast. Have I done everything?
Yeah.
And, then comes that other part of parenting where you are saying, am I doing as much as everybody else?
Right.
And that is a dangerous game to play.
It's tough.
Yeah.
Because that comparison game is...
bad idea.
Well, it's scary too, because I look at it as like, as you're starting to retire in your career, let's just say 10 years from now, and you're finally gaining all this time back that you've been waiting to prepare your family for, to be like, hey, I'm here now, I could give you all this time. But now your family is kind of, they're at college, they're across the states, they're maybe they have their own family or they have their own kids, and I think that's just way of life. And I think the more you can think of it as just, this is just the natural course of things, the more you're okay with accepting
you have to accept it. And I think that's what it is when it's super, super hard. Nothing is a forever condition.
Right.
Okay? You're not happy. Your happiest moments are not forever. Your saddest moments are not forever. Your most fulfilled moments are not forever. And your most blah moments are not forever either.
Yeah.
So it's a transition. I think you just kind of accept it. And in those moments say, well, all right, I'm elated at the moment.
Right.
And there are, you know what I'm talking about, those moments with your kids. You're like, I am going to hang on to this, like money in the bank.
Yeah, it's like nothing else is happening.
To withdraw from later.
Yes.
Okay,
100%.
that's a deposit in the piggy bank.
I like
those
that.
feelings that you can take out later.
Yeah.
Right.
Because they pass.
Yep.
Because there are moments, trust me.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to get on your nerves.
I'm sure. I mean, she's a year and a half, and there's been moments where I'm like, oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I'll call him like, Ricky, what's up, man? What are you doing? You want to go to dinner?
It's
You're
just
like, you're
hectic.
like yelling in the back. I'm like, hey, is everything cool? Like, is Sarah mad? She's like, no, it's Frankie, man. It's just yelling.
It's just always hectic in the house. It's just things are happening. We got, it's I'm sure you know.
It is, and because, again, it's natural. It's just them spreading their wings and drawing boundaries. And you're like, whoa.
Right.
Excuse me.
I got a question for you. So me and, obviously, we have a long ways away until we're like, just before college or they're actually out. And you're getting pretty close, right? Right. So we're planning for it, and whether it's, 529 for your college or
never too early.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we went a different route. We bought some real estate. So it's hers. It's an Airbnb. So we're making some money on it. The mortgage is getting paid down. That is her house for college. So but my wife is a little more crunchy than I am, and she's not a hippie, but she's a little more crunchy. So she's like, look, if it's not for, like, she doesn't have to go to college. I agree with her, but I went to college. College was kind of a big deal. I had to go to college. Yeah. She's like, well, what if she wants to do da-da-da? And I'm like, you're right, but like, how do you
be like a gymnast?
No, just saying, like, what if Frankie goes, I don't want to go to college because I want to do A, B, and C, right? She wants to
go into a trade,
whatever it is, or I want to go into real estate. I want to do that, and or I want to, or I don't know, whatever
Start
that is.
Business.
Where do you? Because you're closer to, like, your kids are there, so.
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
That's an excellent question, actually, and it's something that we all struggle with, right? Because we have this image
of the right thing to do.
I mean,
the
went
path
to school.
Just the right path. Like, this is
to
the right way.
Trend in my household, I have one who's now all of a sudden open to being a lawyer, whereas the other one's like, ugh.
Not interested.
She's like, watches your life. She's like, I do not want to be you.
Terrible.
I do not want to be you.
Yeah.
Why would you punish me?
Right.
And do that. So, at some point, it doesn't matter what you think, doesn't matter what your wife thinks, because they are still going to do whatever they want to do.
Right.
You have to prepare yourself to give them the opportunities if they choose to take it.
Right.
Okay? If your kid says, I'm not going to go to college.
Right.
Or whatever.
Whatever the thing is,
or I'm not going to be a lawyer. Or whatever you have in mind for them. It's not a darn thing you're going to do about it.
Correct. Right. Right.
But are you gonna fund them to do whatever they want? I guess.
Well,
it depends.
I think it depends.
That's
kind of the conversation.
Now, at what point?
The conversation me and my wife has, like, as long as she's like passionate about something and has like kind of a plan.
Like
it's like
plan.
This is where I want to be, and this is what I.
Here's
this is
my
what I
business proposal
need.
to you.
Yeah, she used to sit down, have a drawn out
full-on business proposal.
That's my view.
Okay.
That's my view.
Yeah.
Because I am not okay with what colleges cost.
It's wild.
How
it's
hard
wild.
I've had to work and prioritize what goes to their college.
Right.
You know,
it's crazy.
Mark and I, not just Mark and I prioritize their, making sure that they have those opportunities. If they come in and say, I want to do,
whatever.
Listeners who are this, sorry, but I want to get a master's in 20
historical,
basket weaving.
Yeah.
Which they will never realistically make one penny off of that degree. I'm not paying for it.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm not going to pay for it.
It's a really good way of looking at it.
But, if you want to be, I don't care, here's the Armenian coming out, a doctor,
a lawyer, engineer. You're like, well, fine, I'll pay for you to get there. Yeah.
Those traditionally very successful
or
paths.
something that I feel like will, go towards independence, self-sufficiency, being self-sufficient and all of that, then obviously I will help you.
Yeah.
I am not going to fund something just as a hobby.
Yes.
I will not.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's too
fair.
expensive.
Right.
It's too important. I won't do it.
I feel the same way.
And that might push them in that direction, in the right direction, in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to give them a ton of latitude, to pick what they're passionate about. But but the purpose of higher education is, how do you become self-sufficient?
Right.
How do you become independent and good citizen of the world, so that you can take care of yourself, so one day when I'm dying,
you can rely.
You know that they're going to be, they're fine.
Yeah. Right. So I'm like, oh, okay, they're okay.
Okay, they're going to be okay. Yeah.
So I think that's my role.
Right.
So, and whether that looks like it's in the trade or real estate, I mean,
or whatever it is, right? I don't know. There could be some crazy.
I should have gone into real estate.
All right, I know.
What am I doing wrong by doing everything right?
Sure.
Well, that goes into my last question for today, because it's been a great episode. But I have to ask, now that you have all this knowledge and this wisdom that you shared with us today, is there anything that you really look back at and be like, wow, that was a huge mistake and I wish I did that differently?
Great question. Like in regards to parenting.
Just parenting, life, partnership,
but specifically parenting, I want to know. What?
Like, where did you screw up the most? Where did you screw up the most? So Rickey doesn't screw it up.
Yeah, that's
too many screw ups to count or to identify.
Where's something that you think about? I mean, it sounds like you're perfect. No,
I'm not.
I mean, but as far as your career goes, you're doing a great job. But let's just say with your kids, is there something you would have went back? And now that you've experienced life with them, and 16 years later, like,
I would have done that a little different.
I wish I had done that differently, or I wish I could have probably maybe done this thing with them. I don't know.
Look, I look back.
Spend more time with them on vacation. I have no idea.
Yeah. I think maybe that's one of them that I wish
like, do you take time off work? Like, I really haven't seen it. So, like, does anyone here take?
She's like, I'm taking time off.
I'm like, over here.
I gotta go back to the office.
I'll be like seeing her. I'll be like, it's 7:30. I'm like, I can't leave before Grace. I'm like, when is she gonna leave?
You know what?
That's good.
I'm not gonna do any of the regret.
Oh.
Is that me?
That's the wrap it up.
Yeah,
like in the Oscars.
Oh, sorry. Continue. I apologize.
No, I think, look, it just does no good to play the regret game, to do the do-over game. So I'm not going to even go down that path. I don't even go down that path.
Okay.
And it has nothing to do with, I think I've done everything right every step of the way. Right. I think on any given day, I probably screw up 10 different things. Right. And the next day, at the end of the day, 9. I'm like, well, okay, here's the 3 things I'm super grateful for. And here's something I'm going to do better tomorrow.
Right.
So there's no sense in going back in time and asking for a redo, because it's just not even a possibility.
Yeah.
So I feel pretty comfortable that despite all my mistakes, I've really tried to do my best every day.
Right.
I mean, I can go to my grave knowing that I truly, on a day-to-day basis, I've done my best as far as my kids go. I'm not perfect at it. I'm human. Whatever. But to me, I always prioritize their well-being 24/7.
Yeah.
So along the way, have lost my temper with them way too
course,
much?
yeah.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, of course.
You know,
you're a human being. Yeah.
Yeah. Have I just been too hard on them? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when I look back, do I think, oh man, I should have been a little bit handled that situation a little bit differently or been more patient?
Sure.
Yeah.
I was watching. Sorry, real quick. I'm on TikTok, probably way too much. And I saw a TikTok recently, and it was like kind of this long build up. And this guy's like, "I'm gonna give you the secret on how to be a good parent. This is it. This is the number one thing." It's kind of this long build up, and it basically at the end he just says, "Try."
Yeah.
And that's it. Like that's it. And it's like, damn, like. Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, I am trying on TikTok.
Well,
I'm like, you good, Frankie?
Yeah, TikTok is my guilty pleasure.
Yeah, same. I can't. It's bad.
My dad sends me the only way we communicate now is like he'll just send me
TikToks,
Persian TikToks of like some guy speaking in Farsi. I'm like, Dad, I literally am at work. Like I can't look at his TikTok.
Oh yeah, no, I
She's like, send them to me, actually.
Yeah. No, I love it. But yeah, I think that's it, right? There's no reason to go ahead and there are all those kinds of mistakes in the moment.
Right.
You're human, you're emotional, you're tired. Sure, you can go back and redo it. You know, I'm not a good apologizer.
Right? Yeah.
But I do with my kids make an effort
right.
when I've crossed the line.
Right.
Go back
And it's inevitable. You're gonna those things are gonna
happen all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm hearing like the household crack up right now. Going, really?
When did she apologize?
They're like, yeah.
What day? What time? What was the situation?
My dad was the best apologizer. You know, he gets so mad, loses temper, Middle Eastern father, and then he come in and be like, you know, I love you, son. And I was like, yeah, you just yelled the hell. I literally was scared of that 20 minutes ago. But, you know, I'll wrap it up with this. We talked about it on air, and I had thought becoming a lawyer, everything would just piece together. You know, my dad had made it seem like this profession, this life that you build with a family and with a partner is just, you get everything figured out once you get to this point. But what I didn't realize is we're all just figuring our shit out at all times. And I think we talked about it really just, people are just kind of, like you said, grudging around,
just
figuring it out. And it's okay. And I think that's what's so beautiful about parenting, because you're figuring it out as it goes. And there's going to be things that you and your wife talk about. And you're like, okay, look, this works with us. And things that you can come back at 17 years later on a podcast on the Existential Bro and be like, hey, let me tell you some great things I learned. And I think it's been so cool to see that we're all just in this world, humans, like just figuring it out, making mistakes.
Mike Tyson said you could have the best plan, but when you get punched in the face, everything changes, which is the truth.
Yeah, life is punching me in the face all the time. You know?
Like the series of you do one marathon, you finish that, and guess what? It's
you got a
over.
lot more marathons.
Now you got to go on the next one. In each phase of your life, there are different challenges and different things. And oh gosh, I mastered the toddler years only to go
to now have to redo everything. Yeah,
now it's the next stage, and that's fine.
Yeah,
that's
it's ever
fine,
evolving.
Because what are you going to have your life be stagnant? Your life's never going to be stagnant. If it is, you're not going to be happy.
Yeah, right. No,
so it's just part of it, and you just have to give yourself a little, wiggle room. And we're going to screw up certain things every day.
But it's healthy though. It's growing pains, and with those growing pains, it makes you feel like you're challenging yourself every single day.
But I will say that if you do have growing pains specifically related to like lifting weights or working out, you have the answer.
Actually, that's a really good point. So this episode was sponsored by my good old friends, Titan Nutrition. So if you're having any growing pains with your challenges at the gym, welcome to Titan Nutrition. They are global, and you could get any type of product, whether you're looking for protein, you're looking for
weight
loss, and just in general, just looking for a good time at the gym. Please try Titan Nutrition. This episode was sponsored by Titan. Thank you so much. This is the Existential Bro with Grace Horoupian and my good old Rick, my buddy back in the
Glad to be back.
Thank you for having us. Thank you so much for having us. It was a great episode. Alrighty. Thank you.